Hello, welcome to the video. This is Marty from Marty's Maps, and today I've got a new video, a new idea I'm going to be doing. Similar to the last one, but this is what if Australia had an empire. This will be very similar to the last video, where Australia will assume it's been building up its military for the past few years. It will be represented as red, all defenders will be represented as blue, and we're also going to pretend that the alliances don't exist, because realistically Australia would never, become an empire. Now, back in, I believe, 2020, there was something called the Alkus, or AUKUS, Security Pact, which involved the UK and the US helping Australia acquire many nuclear-powered submarines that, while not explicitly stated, was implied that would be used to counteract the influence China was having over the Southeast Asia. So using that technology is going to be a large factor in what's going to help Australia take over in this fictional scenario. So first thing Australia is going to do is take over a lot of these small islands in the Solomon and Coral Sea. With the exception of New Caledonia, this is French territory, and Australia doesn't want to get them involved. So taking over those islands were very easy. A lot of them just surrendered right away when Australian troops arrived. So now Australia is going to take on one of the closest nations in the region, and that is New Zealand. Australia's military is far surpasses New Zealand's, so it's going to be very easy for Australia to invade from where Wellington is located, as well as major ports and Auckland in the north. So New Zealand surrenders very quickly and it goes under Australian rule. We're now going to be going north, where Australia is now going to be declaring war on Papua New Guinea as well as Indonesia. Taking Port Moresby is very easy, very successful, as well as a lot of these smaller islands near the Solomon Sea. Australia also makes a lot of successful pushes through Papua New Guinea's and Indonesia's southern coasts, taking a lot of these nearby islands with a lot of ease. The invasion of Papua New Guinea is very successful and the nation surrenders. With that, Australia turns its focus onto Indonesia, with going after the capital, Jakarta, I believe it's called, located around here. The capital is taken, as well as a lot of this island and even more islands in the area. As Australia pushes further and further north, eventually Malaysia and Brunei are going to get involved in the war on Indonesia's side. Eventually all of Indonesia capitulates and the country surrenders. Malaysia is able to push back into former Indonesia's borders a little bit, but then Australian Navy takes a jab at Brunei, completely capturing and annexing the country, as well as quite a bit of Malaysia. With that, Australia continues to push back against Malaysian troops, taking back Indonesian territories, and making landings on the Malay Peninsula. When troops arrive at Singapore, the Singapore government is very small and doesn't have very strong military at all, so it right away surrenders, asking for no conflict be brought to the city, which Australia agrees to. As more of Malaysia and Brunei is taken, Thailand as well as the Philippines joins the war on the Allies' side, fighting against Australia. Many successful pushes are taken by Australia into both the Malay Peninsula and the Philippine Islands, which results in Vietnam and Cambodia joining the war on the Allies' side against Australia. Australian forces keep on pushing northward in the Philippines until Manila is taken and the rest of the country surrenders. We're going to take a look at the naval superiority of the two sides. Everything highlighted in this light red is where Australia has naval superiority, as well as everything southward. Everything in this light blue is where the Allies have naval superiority. Australia would try to make an attack on Bangkok in hopes that taking the rest of the Malay Peninsula would be very easily for Australian forces. So they make an attack right here, but it is a huge failure and troops are pushed back. Right here we can also see where China has a lot of naval superiority. They have been trying to gain more superiority in the South China Sea, and in this war, Australia is going to try gaining more naval superiority and taking out parts of Vietnam. This is going to result in them making an invasion, a successful invasion in southern Vietnam, located right here. They do take significant land in southern Vietnam and Cambodia. This does get Laos to join the side of the Allies. Now the two sides are in a bit of a stalemate, so Australia tries pushing troops through this part of the South China Sea to reach Vietnam in more of its northern territories. When they attempt this, it goes horribly wrong, and China now gets involved in the war. While technically on the Allies' side, it's more of against Australia than it is trying to just protect these countries. With China's assistance in the war, Thailand is able to take back a lot of its lost land in the Malay Peninsula, and China is even able to make a landing in northern Philippines and start helping the locals uprise against the Australian occupation. Also, territory in southern Vietnam is reclaimed, pushing Australia much more south than it was before. Now, we are going to see a turn of events which is extremely unlikely, even in this unlikely scenario, but we're just going to have a bit of fun with this and say that happens. We're going to say that Taiwan and Hong Kong join the war on Australia's side. Similarly to why China is with the Allies, is because these two really do not like China, and they're doing this more out of hatred for China than love for Australia. This gives Australia, well, Hong Kong and Taiwan are able to get a lot of very quick naval superiority through this section of the waters. And while it's not very long lasting, it's enough for Australian troops to make a breakthrough onto Chinese coastline. Another interesting development is that Vietnam is, with a lot of Australia's navy now pushing northward, Vietnam is able to send some of their navy to Brunei and actually kind of liberate the people and helping an uprising form, also taking some Malaysian land. Meanwhile, Chinese troops as well as Filipino citizens are uprising more and more, pushing Australian troops out of these islands. Australia then makes a landing in northern Vietnam and makes a very strong push towards the capital of Hanoi, taking it. They then also take back some land in southern Vietnam, and there are other various parts of Vietnam, causing the country to surrender. Laos and Cambodian troops then push into Vietnam territory before Australian troops are able to set up a strong defense line, while Chinese troops come in and take back a lot of the coastline and a lot of the lost lands that are being occupied by Australian troops. China is also able to very easily take Hong Kong, which severely weakens the blockade that Taiwan and Hong Kong were putting on China. China then makes an invasion of Taiwan from the northern part, taking the capital of Taipei, moving down more and more and more until the rest of the country capitulates. Cambodian and Laos troops in Vietnam continue to push eastward, taking more and more land, helping Vietnam rise against Australian troops. Hainan is also taken back, which gives the alliance a lot more naval superiority. The Filipinos have also largely pushed back Australian troops to the point where Australia does not even occupy the Philippines anymore. Meanwhile, Thailand takes more of the Malay Peninsula, while Brunei takes even more land of former Malaysia. The retreating Australian Navy makes a strong defense line in Indonesia, pushing back Thailand forces a little bit more, taking back some of the Malay Peninsula, while also pushing back some of the progress that Brunei has made. We're now going to take a look at what the naval superiority looks like now. So this is what naval superiority looks like. The Allies have pretty much all of the South China Sea, while Australian Navy is sort of hiding within Indonesia and Malaysia. And at this point, both sides are at a standstill. Chinese forces can't push deeper into here, while Australian forces also can't push into, really anywhere. Now that we're at a standstill, China and Australia come to an agreement to reshape the borders and bring an end to the war. We're now going to take a look at what the new borders would look like. So, looking at the borders, not too much has changed. Malaysia has been erased. It's just, the Malaysian government does not exist anymore. So, most of the territory within this main island was given to Australia, while the entirety of the Malay Peninsula was given to Thailand, with the exception of Singapore. Well, it might not even actually technically be part of the Malay Peninsula, but Singapore has been freed, and it probably now has closer ties with Thailand thanks to their support. Since Malaysia is now gone, Brunei has taken a lot of Malay's former land, becoming much larger, as you can see. The Philippines have gained independence again, and up here, because of China's invasion of Thailand, Thailand is now all under Chinese rule. Reunification has been successful for China. Hong Kong is also now under a lot more Chinese influence, a lot more Chinese power. And everything south of here is pretty much now just part of Australian rule, including Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Solomon Islands, Fiji, whatever this is called, New Caledonia is, of course, still French. It's, of course, it's white. I mean, it's French. And New Zealand is also still part of the Australian Empire. So, yeah, that's basically as far as Australia could get when it comes to an empire. This was largely just because of China's involvement in the war. This is my personal interpretation. This would realistically never happen. It's just for entertainment purposes. And since it is entertainment, I hope you enjoyed. I also made this in my spare time. This is just something I quickly threw together. I thought, if Australia is going to be an empire, it should have its own Australian Empire flag. It's not too much different. You can obviously see the differences. I really can't give any definitive reason for why I added the black cross and made this bottom panel red. It just sort of speaks to me as a little bit fascist or a little bit dictatorship, maybe even a little bit of an empire. Please check out some of my other videos. If you enjoyed this, you might enjoy them. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.